Hello everyone, and welcome to today's lecture on the Song of Roland. I hope that you can find the slides in Schoology, and you can pause the recording if you need more time to actually get to the slides, but I'm going to skip over to the actual text. Obviously, the pictures will help you understand the actions once we go through the plot. Okay, so we're basing this episode on a historical event, and we're changing some of the details so that the people who are attacking the rear guard of Roland's army is not the Basques who live in the mountains of the Pyrenees, separating France and Spain, but rather the Saracens or the pagans or the Muslims. This was done primarily because of propaganda. It's the time of the Crusades, so we want to make this battle the age-old battle between good and evil in the form of Christianity versus Islam. Okay, as we begin, we're on stanza 81. Okay, that's what the Roman numbers will switch into. That's kind of weird. Hang on for a sec. Okay, so upon a peak, Oliver mounted, the kingdom of Spain he sees before him spread, and Saracens so many gathered, their helmets gleam with gold are jeweled. Also their shields, their hauberks o'erfrayed, also their swords and ensigns on spears fix. Rank beyond rank could not be numbered, so many there, no measure could he set. In his own heart he sore astonished, fast as he could, down from the peak hath sped, comes the Franks, to them his tale hath said. Okay, so essentially in this stanza, Oliver is playing the role of scout. He's climbed a mountaintop to get a vantage point in order to get a view of what's happening in front of him. There are so many Saracens. I think the text has given us the number of 400,000 who have assembled to go up against Roland's 20,000 Frankish soldiers. And all of this description is about the ceremony and the pageantry of the army. With this information, Oliver comes down to Roland and reports the news. Pagans in force abound, while of us Franks but very few I count. Comrade Roland, your horn I pray you sound. If Charles hear, he'll turn his armies round. When he's talking about sounding the horn, he's talking about sounding the oliphant. You can almost see the word elephant in here, because it was made from the ivory of an elephant's tusk. The horn is kind of like the Lord of the Flies and the conch. You make the sound, and unlike Lord of the Flies, where it signifies that you're the person that's allowed to talk, here the sound carries far enough so that Charles, or Charlemagne, will come and help. But notice Roland's answer. A fool I should be found in France, the deuce would perish my renown. With Durendal I'll lay on thick and stout. In blood the blade to its golden hilt, I'll drown felon pagans to the pass, and shall not come down. I pledge you now to death, they are all bound. Okay, Roland's response here is that he is not going to sound the horn. He says, I will, with my sword, and the name of the sword here is Durendal. This is a time period where many soldiers, many heroes will name their horse, they'll name their sword, sometimes they'll name their shield, and he says, I don't need backup. I am strong enough, and we are strong enough, we, the 12 peers, are strong enough to fight these Saracens. So I'm not going to call for help. Beneath the facade of that bravado is probably what you notice as his tragic flaw. Excessive pride. We've often talked about hubris. It's played a role with Achilles, it's played a role with Oedipus, and here it is again with Roland. So he's not going to listen to Oliver. Pride hath Roland, and wisdom Oliver hath, and both of them show marvelous courage. This is our narrator speaking. And he's not going to say that one is necessarily worse than the other, meaning the two characters. He's pointing out that Roland is definitely overly proud, but Oliver has the prudence and the wisdom. They're both courageous. Once they are horsed and once they have donned their arms, rather they die than from the battle pass. Good are the counts and lofty their language, felon pagans come cantering in their wrath. Oliver says it a second time. Behold and see, Roland. These are right near, but Charles is very far. On the Oliphant, Danes now sound a blast, and were the king here, we should not fear damage. Only look up toward the pass of Asprey. In sorrow there you'll see the whole reward. Who does this deed does no more afterwards. In other words, if you don't call out for help, we won't be fighting any longer. This will be our last fight. But again, Roland's refusal. Utter not such outrage. Evil is his heart that is thought coward. We shall remain firm in our place installed, and from us the blow shall come, from us the assault. And so we continue. To Spanish Pass is Roland now going on Vantayif, and that is his horse. Okay, so very often they would name not just their sword, but their shield, their horse, all of these kinds of things, which fit here. So on Vayantif, his good steed galloping, he is well armed, and pride is in his bearing. This is Roland. He goes so brave, his spear in hand holding. He goes its point against the sky turning. A gonfalon, which are the banners, all white thereon he's pinned, and down to his hand flutters the golden fringe. Noble his limbs, his face clear and smiling, his companion goes after following. The men of France their warrant find in him, and proudly he looks toward the Saracens, and to the Franks sweetly, himself humbling, and courteously he said to them this thing. My lords, barons, go now your pace holding. Pagans are come, great martyrdom seeking. Noble and fair reward this day shall bring, was never won by any Frankish king. And upon these words, the hosts are come touching. So he's basically rousing the troops to fight and telling them that this is a holy war, and therefore, if anyone should die in battle, it's a question of martyrdom. Now, Roland canters through the field. He holds Durendal, the sword, and a great damage he does to the Saracens. You'd see them, one on the other, dead in heaps. Through all that place, their blood was flowing clear. In blood his arms were, and his hauberk was steeped. His chainmail was steeped and bloodied over his shoulders and neck, even his horse, his steed. Oliver does the same. He goes on to strike with speed. No blame that way deserved the dozen peers. Notice that he has 12 companions, very similar to the 12 apostles, right? The pagans are slain, some swoon in their seats, and the Archbishop Turpin says, "This is good baronage indeed. Montjoie," he cries. The call of Charles, he repeats. Now, everything seems to be marvelous, and they strike very, very well, Oliver and Roland. 1,000 blows come from the Archbishop, so all three of them are fighting valiantly, right? But even though the pagans are slain by the 100, by the 1,000, the Franks have lost the foremost of their band. They will no more see their fathers, nor their clans, nor Charlemagne, where in the pass he stands. And here's the description of how the world of nature mirrors what's going on. Torment arose, right marvelous in France. Now, this battle is being fought in the Pyrenees, on the border between Spain and France. So back in France, there are tempests, storms, wind, thunder, rain, hail, so much that could not be spanned. Thunderbolts. The earth quaked from Saint Michel or Michael unto Sens, from Bensaison to the harbor of Gusan. No house stood, but straight its walls were cracked. In full midday, darkness was so grand. So darkness comes over the land at midday. Was this the Judgment Day? That's what people start wondering in France. Is this Judgment Day? No. It is the great day of mourning for Roland. So it's not Judgment Day. It's that the world of nature is mirroring the sadness of what is going to occur. Now, Roland and his army fight fiercely, but they are terribly outnumbered. So it becomes clear, even to Roland, that the battle is not going to be won. Now he decides that he's going to sound his olifant and call Charlemagne. But of course, Oliver is disgruntled over that. He is angered by Roland's pride. Roland says, "Strong it is now, our battle. I will wind my horn so that the king hears it." And Oliver says, "That act were not of vassals. When I implored you, comrade, you were wrathful. Were the king here, we had not borne such damage. Nor should we blame those with him there, his army. Now by my beard hereafter, if I may see my gentle sister Ode, she in her arms, I swear you will never clasp her." So Roland was at one point engaged to Oliver's sister. Ode was her spelling in some versions. And he says, "I hope my sister's never with you because you missed the boat." Roland says, "Why are you mad at me? Wherefore so wroth with me?" And he says, "Comrade, vassalage comes by sense and not folly. Prudence, good judgment is worth more than stupidity." So that's what makes a good vassal. Good judgment, prudence. All of the Franks now are dead because of your trickery. No more service to Charles may we yield. My lord, we're here now. Had you trusted me and fought and won this battle, then had we taken or slain that kill Marsilia. So if you had trusted me, all of us wouldn't be dying, or most of them wouldn't be dead. We actually would have won this battle. But in your prowess, Roland, no good we have seen. Charles the Great in vain your aid will seek, and none such as he till God his judgment speak. Here you're going to die, in France, in shame. Here perishes our whole company, just because of you, just because of your pride, just because of your foolishness, just because you didn't show any prudence. Now the archbishop plays the role of peacemaker, kind of like Nestor in the Iliad. And he says, "Oliver, you and Roland both, please do not scold each other. It's no help to us, that's true, to blow the horn. But nonetheless, it might be good to blow it anyway, because the king, Charlemagne, will come, and he will avenge our deaths. And also, if they find us dead here, they will take us and bury us and give us a Christian funeral with piety and grief. So sound the horn, okay? Oliver, don't be mad at him. Let him sound the horn." And sure enough, Roland does. He grasps it well, and he puts the elephant to his mouth, and Charles hears. So Charlemagne hears the sound. And he says, "Wow, do you hear that?" And Ganelon says, No. I didn't hear anything. It's no big deal." Now, meanwhile, because Count Roland blew so hard on the oliphant, out of his mouth the blood leaps and runs. About his brains, his temple is cracked. So he actually bursts a blood vessel while he's sounding the horn. And he's bleeding internally now. Now Charlemagne says again, "I think I hear his horn. I think I hear Roland. You know he wouldn't sound it unless he were in combat." But Ganelon, who's pronounced as Gwenus here, we'll use our word, Ganelon. Ganelon says, "It's no battle. Come on, Charlemagne, you're old. You're turning white and blanched. You know Roland's pride. Come on. You remember when he took Naples when he shouldn't have? He's supposed to wait for your command, and he did it. Do you remember how he slew people first with Durandal, and then he didn't wait when you were supposed to give the order? He sounds that horn as if he saw a little rabbit. He's just so foolish. Let's just keep moving on." And sure enough, Ganelon convinces Charlemagne not to turn back, not to go help. That's how insidious Ganelon is. So now Roland feels that death is drawing near. His brains have issued from his ears. and he prays to God, and he bids Gabriel the archangel to appear. He takes the Oliphant, and he takes Durandal, and he walks towards Spain, and he finds 2 fair trees, and there he falls down and lies upon the ground and faints. But on that green grass where he fell, a pagan soldier comes by, and he sees Roland, and he sees the blood on his face, and he sees the sword, and he says, wow, check this out. This is Charles's nephew. I bet you I can pull out that sword that's lying beneath him and take it as a prize. But Roland feels the sword being taken from him. He opens his eyes, and he says, oh, thou art not one of ours, full well I know. And he took the Oliphant, and he strikes him on the helmet. He broke the helmet. He broke the man's skull. Out of his head, the man's eyes fall out, and he drops dead at his feet. And Roland says, see that? But unfortunately, I broke the Oliphant in the process. And as he's losing his sight and he's losing his ability to stay alive, he climbs up to that hill. He figures, you know what I'll do? I'll take Durandal and I'll destroy it. This way nobody can steal her from me, the sword. And he takes 10 strikes on a stone, and it will not break. And he says, oh, Durandal, this is so unlucky. We in the field have won so many fights together, combating through so many regions. Oh, I wish that a good vassal will be able to take over possession of your sword. Right? I was a good vassal, but never shall France the free behold this like. And Roland, beating on the stone, cannot break it. And he says, you are wholly fair indeed. There are relics in the hilt, which is the handle. Even though the blade is used for killing, it's a little bit paradoxical that the relics are of holy people. So the blade is for killing, the relics is for the holy. And so he says, these are some of the relics: St. Peter's tooth, the hairs of the Lord, St. Denis, the sum of his robe that was worn by St. Mark. And fortunately, the sword is not going to break. So on the green grass, he lays there. His Oliphant he tucks underneath his body. His sword he tucks underneath his body. And then he prays. He looks to Spain, because that's important to face the enemy when you're dying. And he says, mea culpa, it's all my fault. God, I pray to you, here's his confession, to wipe my sins from me, the mortal sins and the venial sins, which I have borne until this day. And he holds out his glove, which is a sign of fealty, a sign of loyalty, just like in feudalism. And he holds up his glove to the Lord. And then the angels descend from heaven. And he has one more prayer. Very Father, in whom no falsehood is, Saint Lazarus from death thou didst remit, and you saved Daniel from the lion's pit. Preserve my soul from all peril, and from the sins that I did in life commit. And with his right hand glove, he offers it to God, and Saint Gabriel comes down. God sends his angel cherubim with Saint Michael and Saint Gabriel, and they bear Roland's soul to paradise. So Roland becomes the first Christian knight who confesses his sins and offers his soul up to God. Okay? Now, with regard to the assignment, whatever notes that you've taken, please submit to the substitute before you leave. He or she is going to collect them before you leave. And then tonight's homework is to answer the questions that correspond to Roland. Okay, so tonight's homework is the review questions. All right, thanks so much for tuning in. And if you have any questions, you can certainly ask them tomorrow. Okay, have a good day. Thank you.